And we're back with Truth Unrestricted, the podcast that is creating and interpreting the language of the disinformation age. I'm a little rusty. I haven't done an episode in like a month, so I'm just kind of getting back after a small hiatus. But I just want to say first, before we get into the meat of today's episode, that first of all, if anyone has any questions, comments, complaints, concerns about anything they hear on this podcast, you can send that email to truthunrestricted@gmail.com. And minor content warning today, I think, is warranted. We are, for YouTube viewers at least, we are likely to be viewing some images of violent event. That's essentially it. There'll be a minor amount of blood. It won't be images of a person dying, but still, some people aren't comfortable with that. So I'll just throw that out there. It's fairly mild, generally speaking. But in this event that we're going to talk about, someone did die. So unless someone here believes that they didn't die, but I don't think that's true. But some people do believe that no one died on that day. It's a thing. So we're going to talk today about the Butler, Pennsylvania shooting that happened last year in 2024 on July 13th. So maybe we'll introduce you guys next. What's who are you? Why are you here? What's the deal with you?
Man, I just answered the ad in the Hollywood Explorer, so I'm here for whatever.
That's good.
Well, I am Dr. Scorpion the Bird. Traditionally, I introduce myself by saying that I'm here for the nerd shit. And Korak and I collectively host the Ready to Rumble with Bird and Bard podcast, where we dive into the right-wing sewer that is the Rumble video hosting platform. We explore the worst of the worst in Christian nationalism and right-wing conspiracism, all of that terrible stuff so that you don't have to.
Yeah, that's right. I have heard your podcast. It's only going for a little while, but it's been really good so far. So enjoyed that.
If you're gonna look for somebody, as you mentioned before, who has a conspiracy theory about nobody dying that day, look no further than Ready to Rumble, because those conspiracy theories are flying fast and loose over there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I want to spend too much time on like what other people, because there's several different cohorts of people who have generated sort of various ideas about this event, and what the people on the right and the people who are sort of reality malformed come up with, especially all the people on Rumble, tend to be much different than many of the people that I approach about this, which my original episode about this that I did last year, and I think August, September kind of time frame, was aimed specifically for people on the left who have come to beliefs about this, which I think if I'm not mistaken, that you guys fall into that category as well, right? You're generally speaking leftist politics.
Generally, yeah.
Right. I'm not trying to pigeonhole you. I'm just
no.
I'm just,
of course, but
right.
we're all in roughly the same direction, leaning politically, and I know exactly what you're talking about, because I think it's one thing that I've tried hard to do myself. Is, there are so many reasons to hate the right wing. Let's hate them in the right way.
Yeah.
Let's not hate them for the wrong reason. This is why I personally get frustrated when you see doctored photos, when you see AI videos. Like, there's so much genuine. I'm really going to have to work hard not to swear.
You can swear. You can swear in this podcast. Great. Yeah.
E-tag. Awesome. It's really, really hard to maintain that being righteously angry, if you like. There's so much fake shit out there. There's so much made up stuff out there. It doesn't need to be there. The genuine stuff is plenty. there is plenty of what they're actually doing, what they're actually saying. And that's part of what we're doing. We're trying to do with our podcast is to bring that stuff to the front. And yeah, crazy conspiracies. We did one in our last episode. We covered the Charlie Kirk shooting, and some of the conspiracies over that they're so much fun. They're genuinely entertaining.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that people really do hold these beliefs, and those beliefs are poisonous, and they cause genuine damage to society.
True. So I heard your episode. I was listening to it at work, and I heard it. And then near the end of the episode, I heard a thing that particularly caught my interest. And that's why we're all here today, as it were.
Was it Chad? Did Chad turn you on? Because Chad is amazing.
Well, if you like, if with your permission, since it's your podcast, I did grab a clip of the part that perked my interest, so maybe we could just play it if you don't mind. Yeah, sure.
A clip of our podcast on another show. It looks like we've made it. All right, let's hit it.
You made it. You're on the stage now. All right. So let me know if I did this wrong and you can't hear it.
I honestly don't know what to add. I mean, when you're at a point where, like we said earlier, nothing upsets the Charlie Kirk fans more than quoting Charlie Kirk. And when you're at a point where nothing upsets the Trump fans more than quoting Trump, what does that mean? What does that mean for the state of the nation, for the state of the government, for the state of the democracy, for the state of fucking anything?
Oh, democracy? Did you say democracy? No. We've blown past this. This is autocracy, oligarchy, straight into authoritarian fascism. Like, it's not on the march; it's on the sprint, which is ironic considering that Trump can't sprint. Anyway.
Yeah.
Wow.
So let me just roll this for just a few more seconds because this guy's great fun.
It's like the Trump assassination was a movie for everyone to see. Some people thought it was real. Maybe there were some aspects of it that were real. I'm not going to, decipher everything. Some people want to believe this.
I'm not going to decipher it. I'm not going to do any homework.
There's been enough of us that pointed out that it is basically a staged event. This was another staged event, as we're going to work this, decipher this to a certain extent.
Where's Charlie?
Yeah.
Where's Charlie?
Points to Michael in this. Points to Michael for consistency. At least he's not trying to say out one side of his mouth that the Trump shootings were real, while at the same time claiming that the Kirk shooting was fake. So points for consistency. It's all fake. That's something. That's a worldview I can understand.
Okay,
right?
Sure.
Not what I agree with necessarily, but it's what I can understand.
Especially considering now that we've seen close up what it looks like to get shot in the neck with a high caliber rifle versus what Trump produced on his ear, which given the amount of time he was on the floor and the amount of time it took him to get up, there should have been blood every fucking where, because I can only describe what happened to Charlie as all of his blood exited his body simultaneously. Like that was insane.
Yeah. Yeah, the words arterial spray come to mind in the case of Charlie Kirk. But even if you don't hit an artery, I mean, everything above the neck is very vascular. Right. You know, people die from bleeding noses. You know yourself, if you cut yourself shaving or whatever, it takes a long time to stop. Yeah. You don't get an ear wound that just leaves, 2 streaks of blood down the cheek. Right. You don't get grazed by a bullet and then just have a couple of drips of blood down the face. No, your ear is going to be a mess. Even if there's not a huge amount of actual tissue damage, which, it's all cartilage, of course, which doesn't grow back. So,
and according to photos,
there's no scar there.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, according to photos, there was 0 cartilage damage. It's a Christmas miracle.
Yeah. So this puts me in a weird position where my conspiracism is kind of less consistent than this full-on conspiracy theorist, because I believe Charlie Kirk was genuinely murdered and he's genuinely dead. That was not a fake. I also have some very, very serious questions about the veracity of the Trump shootings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know he's just the tip of the iceberg. I've seen other conspiracy theorists who are looking at people in the crowd who happen to be just doing something when the shot rang out. And they're like, see how he moves like this? Like that's a hidden pistol, and the shot actually came from 10 feet away. It's like
he gets deep into that as well, going frame by.
Yeah. So that's pretty much. I grabbed a little longer clip than I, strictly speaking, needed, but I like that first bit you had there, so I just left that in. But that was kind of what I heard, and then I immediately just pretty much went straight to Twitter and tagged you guys and see if you would be willing to come on and talk about it. So here we are.
So yeah, there's so many facets we could go down. I just want to note before we go down any of them, this is not the only guy saying this on Rumble. For every person on Rumble saying shit like this, there are thousands more saying a whole lot worse. This is just a sampling of the craziness. So yeah, welcome to the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, but I was hoping to focus a little more on where your guys' beliefs were on this, like as far as that goes, because that was kind of the part. Like, I wasn't the least bit concerned. You know, I'm not the least bit surprised that on Rumble they're saying crazy things about whether something's fake or whatever. But then I got a little more like interested when I heard that you guys were right, that you guys were not, convinced of the veracity of what was happening there. So that was kind of why I reached out.
Well, let me jump in.
Sure.
First thing, points for knowledge fight next up in your queue. Like that. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Next thing, here's the problem. We are dealing with the lyingest, least honest administration, campaign, and then another administration that history has ever seen.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we absolutely cannot trust, anything since, we have the phrase alternative facts in our vocabulary now.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good.
No, it's terrible.
So we can't trust anything at all that comes from the Trump side. And I hate saying that because, again, that feeds into the type of conspiracism that we ourselves study, critique, and are opposed to.
Yeah.
At the same time, we know that the Trump campaign and the Trump administration have been looking for their own Reichstag fire. They have been looking for their own Horst vessels. They used big balls getting the shit kicked out of them by teenage girls as an excuse to send the National Guard into Chicago or whichever city. I don't know.
Right.
I can't remember. Yeah.
So,
Washington, I think, was,
Washington. I can't remember.
Yeah, doesn't matter. None of us live in the United States right now. So
the point is, it's an event. It's an excuse.
Yeah.
Their action follows on from that.
For sure.
And against that backdrop, it's very, very tough to look at that situation such as it was and not consider all of those things that are abnormal. Now, as far as the setup for the shooting goes, the local cops. Can you trust the local cops? I don't know. Can you trust the Secret Service? I don't know. If I was setting up a stage and there was a flat roof with direct line of sight to my candidate, would I be investigating that? I think I probably would, man. And the phrase that you used on your show, assumption of competence, that's a really great phrase, and that's a really important phrase, and I like that a lot. And I think that, if we're assuming competence on the part of local cops, who probably aren't, I think that's, that I think says more about the fashion that we've had for the last 40 or 50 years of Reaganomics to contract out government services to external providers rather than doing stuff yourself. That's
Right.
kind of one of those evils of capitalism that I could rant about for hours if you want, but we'll just put that one to the side. We'll stay focused on the matter at hand.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, we can assume that everybody was probably slightly off their game.
Mm-hmm.
Or rather, if we work on the assumption that everybody was slightly off their game, okay, that might excuse that. The other thing that you mentioned on your show was there may have been an air of complacency, because it has been a while since a president got shot. You know, the last president to get shot was Ronald Reagan back in the 80s when what's his name was trying to impress Jodie Foster. And it's been since Kennedy that a president had actually been shot and killed.
Mm-hmm.
However, there were 13 separate attempts on President Obama's life that we know about.
Mm-hmm.
There were 12 attempts on President Trump's life that we know about.
Yeah.
There were only 2 on Biden's that we know about. I'm assuming that his opponents were just waiting for the Reaper. So I think complacency was probably not as much of a factor.
I personally think that complacency was probably a much bigger factor on the part of the local police that were there to, do the support for this. You know what I mean? Like, because it's not they don't train for doing this. I mean, this was a factor that puts all kinds of weirdness in here. I mean, people examine this. The way I usually express things like this is that we've come to a point in our reality that people are beginning to interpret the world not as it is, not just as the information comes, but instead through the idea of how do I need to interpret this to justify my political position. And this is exactly how this situation was, where people looked at this and they said, okay, which way do I need to interpret this to get the best the best political outcome for me? And a bunch of people independently, and this is sort of a thing that I'm sort of surmising, but I think this happens sort of independently, where people just do this right now. And then they say, okay, well, it would work better for me if Trump looks bad in this. And he looks good if he's the heroic figure who raises his fist and yells, mouths the word fight to get the, crowd chanting and all this other stuff. He looks very heroic doing that. If he looks like he planned it, then it takes all the air out of that moment. And that works into how people are interpreting this. So then they look for, what is the thing that makes this look like it was staged? And then they use that as a lens to look at everything. And most people aren't looking really deeply. They're just looking for the part that they need or they want or they like, right? And that's where most people are. So,
if this is any indication, if the Alex Joneses of the world, who for every shooting say it's a false flag, these are crisis actors, et cetera, they are not coming out of the woodwork for this, where a man just gets grazed and he's got just a little bit of blood, and the paparazzi and the photos happen to be with him with the American flag behind him. Where are you guys at? Because this is total, if you're going to set up a scene to make somebody look like a hero so that they win in a landslide in an election, where are you, globalist conspiracy theorists saying that, Sandy Hook was a false flag, but this was 100% genuine? Where are you guys at?
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're going to do it, this is how you do it. Right.
Yeah.
And which tells me, not that it's a, correlation is causation, but the fact that Alex Jones is silent about this and, all those other, if I was an Alex Jones type, I'd be like, well, Alex Jones isn't talking about this. That means it's real, because they are all of a sudden reticent to weigh in on something that obviously had some kind of conspiracy behind it. Not that like the Secret Service was in on it or anything, but a person at least conspired to assassinate the president, and the regular, usual suspects are all of a sudden silent on the subject.
But it's
Yeah.
also not just Alex Jones. Like, Trump himself has been silent about it. You know, Trump
Right.
has borne
He's
a
bitched.
grudge for 20 years against Rosie O'Donnell.
I was just going to say, Rose, he complains more about Rosie O'Donnell than he does about the guy who tried to shoot him.
Yeah.
You know,
Still.
so it's not just so it's not just the events of the day that are questionable. It's also the response to the events of the day that are questionable.
Right.
And so,
Well,
again,
I
when
think,
you've got,
yeah. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, when you put all of that against that backdrop, that Trump, let me try that again,
Sure.
against that backdrop that Trump himself has generated, tough sentence to get out all at once. Yeah, you cannot blame people for really questioning the narrative. You know,
Well,
Trump himself has created this environment where nothing he says can be trusted. And so when you've got a lot of questionable actions, like the actions of the Secret Service when they got to him, allowing him to stand up like that, that is one where I vehemently disagree with you. Because I do not for a second accept that a well-trained agent who has had it drilled into him that the safety of the principal is paramount would ever let him stand right back up, straight back into the line of fire and wave his fist around. I simply disagree with you. I do not accept that any trained agent would allow that to happen.
And
I
at
don't
the same time,
know.
I've also covered this in my, it was mostly a tongue-in-cheek video on my YouTube channel, but I covered the same thing. There's footage of Donald Trump where there's a security scare, and he is off the stage within half a second.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and nobody pauses, nobody takes time for a photo op, and Trump himself is already shitting his pants. Like, this has happened multiple times, and all of a sudden, with this time, he's going to pause for a lengthy photo op, and we don't know how many shooters there are, if the shooter has been neutralized, et cetera, et cetera. So
And
yeah,
then
that
from the
part
reverse angle,
absolutely does.
from the reverse angle, we see this. We literally see a photographer getting a signal. From the reverse angle video, we literally see one of Trump's handlers pat the photographer on the shoulder and point him in the right direction.
Right. They lined. There was a bed of photographers lined up for that angle. Like, there were at least 4 or 5 of them.
Well, that's the same angle you would have for the speech, though, right?
No, like,
I mean,
that's what
that's
Doc's
the front
talking
of the
about
stage.
with the reverse
Okay,
angle.
so
No, they
the
were.
angle for the
Go ahead.
speech would be this one. For
Yeah.
the photographers lined up there, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's the angle they would have for a speech. And again, you've got one of his handlers, and trust me, I know how conspiratorial this sounds.
Yeah.
But after the shooting happens, once he's on his feet, you have one of Trump's staffers, one of his handlers, grab a photographer, shake his shoulder, and point him in the direction when he's up there doing the thingy. And Korak is 100% right. We've seen previous and subsequent security scares where they've had to get Trump off of the stage, and it's everybody cover Trump with their bodies, get him as low as possible, and shovel him off. So again, this is one where I vehemently disagree with your assessment of the situation. I do not for a second accept that the Secret Service agents, if they thought there was a tiniest amount of danger, would have allowed him to stand up, wave his fist, grab his shoes, and then get him off the stage.
Well, that's fair. I mean, first of all, the Secret Service, they're never going to tell us, right? They are never going to tell us. They are always, this is the ultimate bluff scenario. You know what I mean? They are, it's a game of poker where they never have to show their cards. So they'll always pretend like these were the cards. You know what I mean? So they'll always say that whatever they did was what they planned to do, because the situation for them is that our agents are trained to do all the right things, and whatever they did was the right thing. And then if it wasn't the right thing, privately amongst themselves, they'll get, I don't know, disciplined or whatever they get. You know, I'd lecture. I don't know what they get. Written up, or I don't know, whatever the version of that is in the Secret Service, right? But to the public, it'll be like, no, it happened that way because that was the way it had to happen for what we had. So, I mean, there are reasons why, like, I don't know why they stood him up. I don't. But there are reasons why you wouldn't whisk him off the stage right away, right? Because if the route that you need to take from the stage to wherever you need to go next isn't clear in that exact moment, then you're waiting, you're listening as a Secret Service agent on the stage. You're waiting for the all clear to take him away. That's what you're waiting for. I don't know why they stood him up. But
you're overlooking a couple things, and that's already been stated. The fact that literally every other security scare ends with him being shuffled off within seconds. They don't wait. There's no,
in those situations, do they have the all clear already? I mean,
okay, so either
different stage, different exit route from where you are to where the car is, like.
So either you're suggesting that there in 99.9% of all the other cases there was clear egress, but in this one case there wasn't, and they had to pause, which has never happened. But you touched on the Secret Service, and I wanted to get back to that really quickly, because this is where like the January 6th committee gets short shrift. They actually got a Secret Service agent to admit during a deposition on camera that Trump tried to grab the wheel on January 6th. He tried to force his Secret Service driver to take him to the Capitol to lead the mob. And that's the most we've ever heard out of a Secret Service member under oath. So they were able to get that. And
it
like
took a lot to get that, though. It took a lot.
So the Secret Service is going to be tight-lipped about what happened on, during the Butler shooting, but their behavior alone suggests that they weren't following standard protocol.
That's true. Yeah, it suggests that. We'll never know. They'll never tell us, because they're never, ever going to say, yeah, we didn't follow standard protocol there. And sometimes we don't. You know what I mean? They're always, even if they're not competent, they're presenting as though they were competent, because this is like a card game and they win every hand. That's the thing they're trying to project. You will never have a chance to kill the person we're guarding because we are more competent than anyone who will try to. Yeah.
I mean, at the risk
obviously it's not true, but
at the risk of presenting a false dichotomy, if we accept that this was not a staged event, that this was a genuine attempt on Trump's life, that means that the Secret Service was either incompetent, their protective measures failed, or they were not following their standard protocol.
Which is still incompetence, right?
Yeah. So and they're never going to admit either of those things.
Yeah, we'll never know that.
Which actually does make some grade of complicity not unlikely.
Right.
Well, okay. But
I mean, all I have to believe are my lying eyes. That's all.
Well, there's a few problems. See, the other problem that I didn't really go into in my original episode, but we'll kind of get into now, is that starting with this idea that there's a problem with this and that it might be a conspiracy because, I think that the Secret Service were doing something they shouldn't have been doing when this happened. They acted in a way that I don't think they should have acted, or whatever someone tells themselves when they look at this. And that's fair. You can always ask that question, but once you stack that into the scenario and start trying to put together, with all the other things we know, that's when I think it really starts to become not obvious. So, for example, if we think maybe that, this is staged, let's just kind of game it out. If we think it's staged, if we think that because of the way the Secret Service were acting, they were allowing him to stand up, they gave him 10 to 15 seconds or whatever it is, and he had his moment in front of the cameras. He had handlers who were moving camera people into position, which, by the way, aside, those people are also politicians. They are looking for opportunities just the same way Trump is. So the fact that a handler is looking for a moment to make Trump look more heroic to me isn't surprising either. But let's just say that this is part of the idea that someone has in their head when they look at this and they think, because of those things, I think that this thing is just fake as fuck or whatever. Okay. But then we look at the other things we can see. You said your lying eyes. And we think, okay, well, if that's the case, then what other things are really real, and how does this thing fit together in a grand scheme of the story of that day? Because then we think, okay, was his ear really injured by a bullet?
Okay, so yeah,
was a bullet really shot at him, right? Was a bullet really shot from a gun on the roof? Was that really, Thomas Matthew Church? Which other things are fitting here, right?
I want to, all right, so the two things there. One, I want to just hand over to Doc because he can explain it better than I am about the wounded ear, which miraculously healed, because you can see Trump's ear. The maxi pad was not a requisite because there was no injury in the first place. But to feed the conspiracy, grist for the meal, if you're trying to make a fall guy to blame this thing on, do you get an ex-sniper from the Navy SEALs and then they have to be the fall guy and sacrifice their life? Or do you have an impressionable youth who failed the Can't Shoot Straight club at high school but was still a Trump supporter, and allow him to take a shot knowing that it wouldn't be successful? Again, I'm not saying they were in on it or they conspired with the kid, but if you're looking for a conspiracy, Trump doesn't complain about this kid. The kid, his identity, it didn't really reach a lot of mainstream media outlets. It wasn't widely reported, his background and how he was a MAGA supporter in high school and how he failed out of gun club. So if you're looking for a patsy, this is where Alex Jones says, well, we got our patsy right there. He wasn't MK Ultra. He was a shithead who died easily. Okay.
On its face like that, I agree. Like this looks like a nobody. And if you're gonna, in the place in your mind, like where you put this together as a staged event, that does fit in with that. This idea that this is a nobody who can just go away, and the shooter, who also dies at the scene, never gets to tell anyone what steps got him there, right? Is not available for questioning, obviously, because he's no longer with us.
Right. And that's the difference. I'm not saying that he was in on it or he was like bought out by the Trump administration or anything, but if you are going to play the conspiracy theory game by like the Alex Jones rules, this fit the globalist plot. Like, this is a wonderful little piece of the puzzle that we don't have to talk about anymore.
True. This is exactly the thing that Alex Jones should have cashed in on, and the fact that he didn't is probably more like what I said about many people on the left looking at this situation and interpreting it based on how they wanted it to turn out. Alex Jones, I believe, did the exact same thing. He looked at this situation, said, this makes Trump look heroic as is. I don't need to change anything. Therefore, I just run with it exactly as it is, right? Other situations, he interprets some other way because that's the political reality he wants to affect.
And I put in our chat, I don't know if you want to add this to the description after the fact, but I have a tongue-in-cheek Trump's conspiracy theory video, and I intimate the idea that because Alex Jones is not doing the usual Alex Jones thing, Alex Jones was in on it. So, that's not a very far leap for somebody who thinks like Alex Jones.
Right.
I think to add to that, all three of us are listeners to Knowledge Fight. All three of us have a reasonable knowledge of Alex Jones. And we know that Alex Jones is a relatively simple creature. He has a fairly standard playbook for things that happens, except when it comes to Trump. And increasingly, anytime it makes a right-wing figure look bad. Yeah, he has become a far more political animal. It wasn't that many years ago he was trying to convince us that he was above the left-right paradigm. He's abandoned that position completely.
Yeah.
I think you have to be the most ardent and dyed-in-the-wool of his supporters to genuinely believe that Alex Jones is a politically neutral person today.
Right. Oh yeah, he's not in any way neutral. No.
Yeah, and so I think it adds weight to the conspiracy that this was not a complete. I'm not going to say it's staged. I'm not quite sure of the right descriptor here.
I'm not going to try to pigeonhole you and like whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not here to lure you in and get you with a gotcha or something like that. I'm not. Yeah.
But look, I genuinely did have my mind changed as I was listening to your episode. I hadn't seen those high-speed photos. I went and looked them up, and yeah, there is very definitely the path of a bullet in one of those frames, one of those 800th of a second frames. That's genuine. And the wound. Let's talk about the wound for a second.
Well, maybe we can look at some pictures. Actually, I have a bunch here.
Okay.
Well,
if you don't mind.
As you pull those up, I would shift gears from Alex Jones to Tucker Carlson. I'm just asking questions. Was Trump in on it? Did Trump have awareness of who Matthew Shepard was? I'm just asking questions. Was there a blood packet that he had in his pocket?
I hate the fact that they've turned us into just asking questions, guys. And I hate the fact that Korak has that song lying eyes in my head too. I will hate you for that.
So, for listeners of the podcast, this particular episode is probably best viewed on YouTube because we have images here, but we're going to do a little bit to describe them. You're at the mercy of our level of description, however, so it is what it is. So, anyone want to take a stab at this? Is kind of one of the images that most people think about when they think of that day, right? This is Trump with his fist held in the air, and he's surrounded by Secret Service agents who look like they're all looking one direction, which tells me that they're in the process of moving him. And he has blood kind of smeared across his face. He's got like 2 smears, right? Some people have taken this image and modified it to have other things to make it look even more, in their minds, I think, make it look more fake than it looks, I guess, to them. But this is the one of the real images from that day. I think to me this looks like a general representation of sort of what you described in your podcast episode when you talked about the amount of blood and the just kind of 2 streaks across his face. So maybe I just thought we'd start with this image. And
so from this image,
I'm sorry, you get an echo.
Oh, I know why. I need to mute the screen audio. There you go. How's that?
Okay.
Yeah. As the echo started, I still don't know what Doc Scorpion said. He said, I hate something about Korak, and then there was an echo. I couldn't.
No,
I hate so many things about Korak. Yeah.
You've heard it all before, I'm sure.
I hate that you put the song Lying Eyes into my head.
Okay, that's fair.
Anyway, so we've got the image. We've seen the image before all of this. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 agents surrounding Trump. Not a one of them is making an effort to get him low. Not a one of them is making an effort to push his head down. They are pushing him off to the side of the stage. We can see 1 streak of blood extending from halfway along his cheekbone to his top lip. And we can see 1 streak of blood going from, I'm going to say, mid-jowl to his bottom lip. We can see shadow at the top of the ear, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
and sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, look, I know this is, look, as I was listening to your episode, Spencer, there were 2 things that occurred to me that I'm guilty of myself.
Sure.
One of them is arguing in the "this should have happened" format.
Mhm.
And we've done a bit of that today because essentially in a situation like this, that's basically the only avenue that's open to us. And it's a very weak form of argument, and it leads to very weak conclusions. None of us can genuinely say that event A should have happened after event B. So, okay. All right. So, listeners, Spencer's put up a new image. Again, we've got 1, 2, 3 agents surrounding Trump. One of the agents' head is obscuring Trump's face, but right in the center of the image, we can see the ear. And as we zoom in, we can see blood along the top third of the ear. Might be a little trickle of blood curling down the ear to about halfway down. And we can see a dark patch that is probably the wound that, in comparison to all of the fingers and various other body parts that we can see, can't be any more than half an inch to an inch big. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's about right.
And we're also, just to note, this is after he's been wounded either by a bullet or, let's say, shrapnel. Something tore the top of his ear off, and he's been on the ground for several seconds, and now he's been up, on his feet saying, "Let me get my shoes," for several seconds, in which point this should be a geyser.
Yeah. So I'm going to...
Okay.
Well, hold on a second, because I'm going to repeat what I said on our episode.
Yeah, sure.
Head wounds bleed.
Yeah.
The head is incredibly vascular.
Mm-hmm.
And the smallest of ear wounds produces a lot of blood.
Yeah.
Now, I know there are people on YouTube who have done videos who have tried to recreate the shot, who have tried to get as close as possible to the ear without actually destroying the ear. All of them have failed, because as soon as you get a bullet that close to the ear, for all intents and purposes, explodes. The other thing that you would definitely have, and we can see it in the photo. I don't know if you've got at hand the photo that shows the path of the bullet.
I do have it.
That we captured it. Okay.
We're going to look at it in a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing that the bullet has is a pressure wave.
Yeah.
And a lot of sound.
It will compress the air right near it, which by the way, means it doesn't actually need to truly touch the ear in order to damage it, because that air compressing near the ear skin will damage the skin as it grazes.
But what that level of air pressure also does is completely fuck with your balance centers. So I don't know if you've been involved in any kind of martial arts or similar endeavors yourself, Spencer. I've had my ear struck once or twice, and it doesn't take much air pressure coming directly into the ear canal to wobble the eardrum, to knock those 3 little bones around, and to just... the reason you fall down is that your balance center essentially switches off. You just can't stay vertical anymore.
When you get boxed in the ear,
yeah, and that didn't happen.
True. Yeah, it's difficult to say how far from the bullet the air pressure would change. Like,
so what we're talking about then is a bullet that came close enough to break the skin without touching the cartilage, and a bullet that broke the skin but did not apply pressure to the eardrum and did not knock around the balance centers inside the ear.
Yeah, that's pretty much,
And didn't shred any of the surrounding skin. Like, if it came as close as it supposedly did, the whole right side of his face should have had some kind of damage.
So we're looking for a bullet that broke the skin but didn't touch the cartilage, which I accept that, if it gets close enough, then it doesn't need to touch the ear, just the proximity of a fast moving object, sure. But But yeah. So we're
Yeah.
just zooming back in on that picture
Yeah,
of the ear.
I'm just
again,
grabbing a couple of other images of the ear just because we're talking about it, right? I'm trying to.
Yeah.
All these images, by the way, are available from sites if you pay for them in much higher resolution than I have. I don't have very good resolution because I just kind of screen grab them. But that's like several hundred US dollars per photo, and I'm not paying for that. Someone else can do that. But yeah, you could get this in a much higher resolution than it is.
And we have a special guest on the camera. That is
Yes.
Spencer's cat.
For YouTube viewers only, this is the kind of special attention you get, is a cat
she's
that doesn't want to be
beautiful.
held. She is beautiful. She's 1 year old yesterday.
Is that a
Happy
Blue Point
birthday, cat.
Siamese?
That is she is a Siamese crossed with a ragdoll.
Oh,
Yeah, she's great. Yeah, but anyway, back to the regularly
so
scheduled. Yeah.
let's talk about the ear wound itself.
Sure, yeah.
Specifically, let's talk about the dressing of the ear wound.
What we saw at the RNC. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, the maxi
And look-
pad? Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got to say, and I don't know how else to put it, that's not how you dress an ear wound.
No.
It might be how you cover up the dressing of an ear wound if you don't want anyone to see the dressing, but
True.
that is not how you dress an ear wound. It's not how you apply a protective cup to an ear wound, because if you need to cover the ear, there are sort of almost semicircular, semispherical cups that go over the ear that then get strapped onto the head.
Mhm.
If the ear needs to be protected that way. But yeah, an ear wound like that, you see it. I mean, I see it on rugby players. You guys have a completely different type of football that you watch with helmets and other stuff. But if you watch a game of rugby, you can see players at the start of the game, the way that they've got their ears taped up. That's how you dress an ear. That's how you protect an ear. You don't just, like Quark said, slap a maxi pad and some tape on the side of your head and call it done. So that also makes me question how genuine this wound actually is. And again, cartilage doesn't grow back. And
True.
we know that he has not had reconstructive procedures done on that ear because he is probably the most filmed and photographed man on the planet right now.
Right now, probably.
And if he had gone into surgery to get his ear reconstructed, we would know about it.
Oh yeah.
And besides which, we also know it hasn't been done because we've seen his ear since then, and there is nothing there. There's no scar, there's no discoloration, there's no difference between.
We're gonna get to that.
when it
I have
was
an
and-
image for
okay,
that.
All right. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Cool.
we're gonna get to that. I'm gonna stop you right there. We'll get to it
All right.
soon. So, yeah, like, I mean, these are the images of the ear on the day of. Oftentimes when I hear some people talk about this, they do the thing that we talked about first when you guys were talking about what the Secret Service were doing and all of these reasons that you pointed out earlier. This is especially true of things like the JFK assassination and 9/11 and things like this, where people point out what they think should have happened, and because those things didn't happen, they say that, well, maybe this is not on the up and up, not the way that not fully honest, right? The cattail.
And again, and like I said, it is a weak form of argument, and it leads to weak conclusions. But it's the only conclusion. It's the only form of argument, and the only conclusions we've got.
Yeah.
And B, every time you see something that is not consistent with what should have happened, it further feeds into that conspiracism. It further feeds into that.
It's
what
true.
Aren't they telling us, and what don't we know? Sort of mindset.
These are things absolutely that encourage people cognitively to come to conspiracist sort of leanings on this particular issue, right? I mean, that, like, what you're saying is real. Like, some people approach this in a way where they try to say that, all those people who come up with conspiracy theories, they're all stupid or whatever. And I don't do that. I don't think that it's these beliefs fold along an IQ line, right? It's actually much more likely that being above a certain IQ line makes people more likely to trust their own judgment ahead of other people's judgment, and therefore trip up and sometimes come to conspiracist leanings on things like this and other things. You know what I mean? And so this is why it's foolish and short-sighted and, in my opinion, the wrong way to look at it, to try to dismiss people who come to conspiracist leanings as lacking intellect or whatever. Because in my experience, that's not really true. And it also tends to just push those people further away and make them more unreachable. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm looking at you guys and go, oh, look at these chumps. They think that this is whatever. Like, a lot of people have come to conclusions like what you have come to for the same reasons you have. And, you know, in my opinion, once you put more pieces in, it starts to fall apart. So you pointed out that you don't, you're not convinced this is a wound that would happen by way of a bullet that's traveling at that speed. Right. And so, and this is the thing that other people have said. They said, okay, well, maybe he faked it. Maybe he, wrestlers do this. They take a little, they hide a little, thing in their ear, and they nick their ear, and then it comes up with some blood. And it is a real thing wrestlers do. They nick their ear for this reason, because the ear bleeds well, but if there's no large stream of blood. So while it will be an impressive amount of blood, it won't be enough blood to ever harm them. And it looks good on the canvas to have that, and it looks like something really dramatic happened. So this is a real thing that wrestlers do. There's other spots on their body that they might nick to make this happen, but the ear is a popular one just because it's also, not really actually very important. The cartilage on your ear is not that important. It's easy to get to. So
the level of blood is measured on something called the Muta scale.
Oh, really?
After professional wrestler, Japanese professional wrestler named Muta, who, particularly impressive blading of his ear that essentially covered both wrestlers in a thin sheet of blood by the end of the match. It was really impressive looking.
I have had my ear bleed before as well, from frostbite wound, if you can believe it. I live in Canada. Whenever I have frostbite in Canada, But I got the frostbite. It formed a scab, and then I picked at the scab, and underneath it bled, and it bled good. It bled good, like
Yep.
Absolutely.
And if you've seen wrestlers with cauliflower ears when they pop, if you've seen boxers or MMA fighters with cauliflower ears, or doesn't even need to be cauliflower ears, but if you just see people who get a solid punch to the ear and it bleeds, half their face is covered in blood in the space of a second.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, ear wounds on the earlobe like that up in the thing, they do bleed. But I think this is a fair amount of blood. I mean, it pools. It's on the inside of his ear. You can see a trickle coming down into the ear. You can see it on the outside as well. Some people also think that this
I'm
is
sorry,
just.
I'm just
makeup.
Really sorry. Just to jump in.
Sure. Yeah.
That's a skinned knee. That's not a bullet wound. That is.
It's not.
I've seen worse. I've seen worse falling off your bike onto a road of gravel.
It is. I mean, I'm not here to say it's something other than it is. I mean, I'm looking at the same thing you're looking at. We're looking at an ear. It's red. We have to presume it's blood. Some people think that this is makeup. That when they were in the scrum on the stage, that the female Secret Service agents applied the makeup. Of course, the female Secret Service did, because males don't apply makeup. This is a conspiracy belief I've heard formed here. No kidding. This is the thing people say out loud.
A little bit of misogyny in there as well.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But the way I put it in my little tongue-in-cheek conspiracy video, you can see Trump grab his ear and then kind of wipe his face before he goes down. And so I think, if we're going to embrace the conspiracy theory level of this, I think Trump put that on his ear. I have no reason to believe otherwise. And see, okay, right here, he's in a prone position. And so there should be now a pool of blood covering his wrist, hand, and the floor to his right side.
Well, I don't know how much blood there was on the stage. Like,
zero. The answer is zero. I see nothing.
Well, none of us have seen the stage, right? Unless you have a photo of the stage itself. But
well,
I mean,
just looking at the streaks and how they end, there is no, that dripped off of his face and onto the floor. There was a streak and it ends on his face.
Well, true. I mean, this is, it's hard to say exactly how many seconds. We're talking probably like 10 seconds, 10 to 12, maybe even as many as 15 seconds after is kind of when this picture would have been taken. It's still a fair amount of blood in 10 to 15 seconds, right? I think to me, it's enough. It's difficult to say how deeply, deep into the skin this went. It's, to me, this picture tells me a couple things. First of all, it tells me that it would have been incredibly difficult for anyone to be applying makeup to him while other people are also just taking pictures of him like this.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Okay, so that's why I think Trump applied it himself, because look at this and then compare it to the previous picture where he's standing there. The streaks are the same. They haven't increased. They haven't been gushing blood. Like what happened on his face stayed that way. And then when he came back up, it was the same streaks. These streaks have not changed from this picture to the previous picture.
Where am I?
Yeah, it was like the first one. Yeah. Okay. So that's what we're seeing with him on the ground 15 seconds earlier with more time for the blood.
Also,
to
like
pour.
something has wiped down his face right along the side between just in front of the ear and before the cheekbone. It looks like someone or something has wiped down because there's also this smear of blood here. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's a third streak. So we're currently looking at the photo that we saw before of him standing, not getting his head pushed down. If we can have another look at that one where he's on the ground, because I think,
sure, yeah,
okay. So there is a third streak in that photo that's not present when he's standing.
Yeah,
so we can see in this photo, there's a thicker streak in between the two that we can see while he's standing. So at the very least, I think I can agree with your statement that at the very least his face got wiped down while he was there,
to at least some extent.
So something happened to his face while he was down there. There was
someone's shirt, a shoulder of a Secret Service agent that his face wiped against. Difficult to say exactly what it is. Obviously, it's a scrum. It's confusing. But
I disagree.
That's what it looks like to me.
Here. I disagree with Korek here in that I don't think it was makeup. I think it was genuinely hurt, but I am it was a piece of shrapnel, a splinter of glass or something camp. I do not accept that it was a bullet. I think it's far more likely that it hit a screen, hit a piece of bulletproof glass, whatever. I know that people have debunked the teleprompter theory, and I'm happy to accept that, but I don't know what sort of screens or pieces of glass or whatever were around. I mean, did he have his usual, sheet of perspex in front of him that was holding his notes? I don't remember, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know what else was around. But yeah, again, I just don't see a bullet doing that.
So here's a picture of this was the picture taken by Doug Mills, working for the New York Times. I don't know if he still does. I think he's also done contract work for a lot of other places. This is I mean, to plan to take this picture would be fairly insane. It's very difficult to take a picture of a moving bullet like this without, very, very high precision timing. So some people say that the fact that this exists definitely proves that there's some kind of planning involved. That's also questionable. I don't know how you
What he was doing at the time was that he had his finger on the button, on the shutter button.
He was just taking as many pictures as possible.
It was just tick, 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 every 1/800th of a second.
So
the two images prior and subsequent to this exact one do not show the bullet. That's how fast it was going.
Oh yeah.
Was that there is no streak in the image before this, because there is a video with Doug Mills where he goes through the images and how he managed to capture them. There was no streak in the prior image. There's no streak in the subsequent image. It's just this one. That's how fast the bullet was traveling. Which again, that level of kinetic energy in a bullet is not going to leave a tiny half-inch.
If it loses any kinetic energy as it goes. I mean, in order to impart kinetic energy from itself into another object, it has to impart it. It has to, lose some of its kinetic energy impart it upon what it's passing through or into or whatever. I mean, that's physics. I don't know. I know that there will be a very small layer of air that surrounds a bullet as it goes through the air. And that alone can graze you. The bullet can actually, by 1,000th of an inch, not touch you and damage you, because the air that compresses very close to the bullet can be the thing that's hard enough to damage you. I mean, that's also possible.
We're trying to. Sorry, we're trying to thread that needle of it got this close to do this kind of damage, but not close enough to do that kind of damage. And if it was close enough to do this kind of damage, there should have been more damage.
Well, and Spencer, you mentioned in your episode this series of low odds events.
That they have to be
that you used in your
in order to stack them all up and say that all of them together would be beyond the ability to have happen, would assume first that they're all dependent on each other, that they're not just independent events. Yeah.
So this bullet getting close enough to the ear to not actually touch it, but to have that extremely thin layer of air with enough energy to break the skin, but not damage the cartilage, not actually hit, just go past without pushing enough air pressure onto the eardrum to cause hearing damage or to cause loss of balance. That's the lowest odds event possible in terms of what actually happened on the day.
I mean, I assume that you believe that this is, first of all, a real bullet and that there is a person shooting it. Then the bullet being fired in this direction had to go somewhere. I mean, it has a path. You know what I mean? If you're going to fire you ever play darts? Throw darts at a dartboard? Okay. Yeah. And then there's little metal pieces that divide all the areas. If you took the metal off and it's just a line, the odds of you hitting any one spot, including the line, are all very low. But you're going to hit somewhere if you fire the dart and hit the board at all. But every individual spot you hit has a very, very low chance. So if you're looking at it and you say, well, there's a very, very low chance of here, also a very, very low chance of here, and also a very, very low chance of here, it looks like you'll never hit the dartboard, except that you nearly always do. So the bullet's going to have some path as it goes there because he fired it at this person.
Sure. But that just means that, again, that collectively, the odds of the bullet being literally anywhere else are higher than the bullet being where
If
it
you
actually.
if you hit the bullseye, you
if you want to talk about if
Yeah.
you want to talk about the darts analogy, like sure, if we're talking about the odds of the board as a whole, then you add up all of the tiny probabilities of each particular spot, and you've got a reasonable chance of hitting the board.
Yeah.
If you take the probability of hitting that specific spot on the board, then that's much, much smaller than hitting the whole rest of the board. And this is exactly what I'm saying about this photo, that the odds of that bullet taking up that tiny little piece of space on its trajectory as it moves across the screen from where we can see it, as it moves across, we can see how much space there is around that bullet. This is what I mean by it being a low odds event.
Well, here's what I'll say is that what this sort of logic says to me is that to plan to do this, like to actually fire a bullet from a gun as far away as Thomas Matthew Church was toward a target and do exactly this sequence of things would be remarkable. If you had planned it, if you said on the dartboard, this exact little dot here is the dot I'm going to hit with the dart, it would be remarkable to hit that exact very tiny point. But that's not how we play darts. You know what I mean? Like even the bullseye is larger than a tiny point. So this is the kind of thing that could happen by chance, but is very unlikely to happen by design.
I agree.
If that makes sense.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I'm just pointing out that,
it does seem like all the little things.
And what you were saying,
he turned his head just before this,
in your
right?
episode.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but we've seen that before on Day of the Jackal. Yeah. You remember that the original Day of the Jackal?
No.
An English guy is trying to assassinate the president of France. And then the president of France.
Is that a movie?
Yeah, the president of France. It was a novel by Frederick Forsyth first, and then it was a movie that got made in the 70s, I think, and then it got remade in the 2000s, a really terrible Bruce Willis remake. And then I think they just remade it again for Netflix with Eddie Redmayne. Was it Eddie Redmayne? I don't know. The point is, in the original, it's an Englishman is trying to assassinate the president of France.
Yeah.
And so he's got him lined up. He's got his shot. It's perfect. The gun's calibrated. Everything goes in. He's about to squeeze the trigger. He does squeeze the trigger. And then the president of France leans in to kiss the guy who he's giving a medal to.
Just moves his head.
Because, English people don't do that. So, yeah, no, I agree. Very, very low odds event.
If you were planning it, it would seem insane that you would plan exactly these things and have this go off by design. I mean, that's...
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
At the same time, you've got to consider the people who were struck that day. Someone was injured and a person was killed. This wasn't... If you want to really embrace the conspiracy theorist side of it, I say that he was not necessarily in on it, but they knew he would attempt and that he would suck at it, and there'd be collateral damage.
This is sort of the passive allowance thing, right? This follows ideas that have happened about 9/11, where people say, okay, well, they probably knew that these terrorists were going to do this thing, but they also knew that if they did something like this, that we could use it, the government could use it as a excuse to do the things they wanted to do. Yeah. So they just sort of let it occur.
Yeah, stochastic terrorism. That's, and just to digress a little bit further, a lot of people may not know this, but the director of the FAA on 9/11, that was his first day on the job.
Yeah.
Literally. So if I'm Alex Jones, I'm going, okay, they started a new guy. That was his first day, and he's supposed to deal with 9/11. This was a plant. Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't, not clash with that idea.
True.
Again, here's the three of us. None
Yeah.
of us are conspiracy theorists. We're talking like conspiracy theorists, and the
Well,
world's number one conspiracy
point that out
theorist
because
is not fucking interested.
I like to point out the ways that these things relate, because I like to say that it's not that much of a surprise that people come to this conclusion about this one or this idea about this one, because it's very similar to other ideas that people have come up with about other events. And that's the reason I bring it up this way.
And that's the world we live in, where if Sandy Hook was a conspiracy theory and a false flag and they were crisis actors, surely we can allow for this kind of speculation given an attempted, quote, assassination attempt on the president's life.
The problem with imagining that, someone knew that there was going to be a guy climbing up on a roof and he's going to take a shot and we're going to let him because we know he sucks, is that you somehow have to either get Trump to be okay with it because he's in the line of fire, or you have to not tell him. Get up there and risk yourself to, how does that fit together? Yeah,
here's
sure.
me laying all of my cards down.
Yeah.
I think it was that passive acceptance, or the passive allowance. I think the Secret Service was complicit. I think it was planned by people but not necessarily Stephen Miller. And I don't think Trump was aware. I think that it's far too obvious of a shooting spot for even the local. What's the guy off that show? What's that bumbling? I don't know. I shouldn't try and make American cultural references from many decades ago. Andy Griffith. What was the guy? Yeah, anyway, doesn't matter.
Yeah, Andy Griffith.
Yeah.
So
the actor and the name of the show.
Yeah, but he had a deputy who was the
Barney Fife.
Don
Barney,
Knotts.
right? Yeah. So fine. So a bunch of Pennsylvanian Butler Barney Fifes didn't check a flat roof that looks straight at him.
I see where you're going with this, and that actually makes a lot of sense. Put Barney in charge. We know probably what's going to happen, but I didn't even think to check the roofs, Andy.
Or maybe a Secret Service agent said, no, don't worry about that roof. We've got it. I don't think that it was a genuine attempt that was represented any real danger to Trump. Yeah. Which is part of the reason why I don't believe it's a bullet wound. I think it just hit something in a little bit of... Because from this photo, from where this shot came from, because if you look at the map of the roof in relation to the stage, the roof is off to my left, so that would be Trump's right.
Yeah.
From where he's standing on the stage, which means that this bullet has already gone past his ear in this photo.
Yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, I believe that bullet hit something behind him, a bit of glass, bit of stone, bit of metal, a little chip of something clips his ear.
Maybe.
On the rebound.
It could be. Right?
And
we don't know.
No, we don't know. And we'll never know. And we'll never know if a Secret
This is the very
agent...
next frame, though, right? This, it doesn't say, this doesn't, disprove you or whatever, but his hand immediately goes to his ear as the bullet passes. So whatever it was, I think it was the product of the path of that bullet, whether it was the bullet grazing him or it was something else that was struck and that chip came off. And, this, the sequence of pictures that Doug Mills took doesn't show absolutely everything that happened in between the individual pictures he had, obviously, because he doesn't have a full path of the bullet as it passes or anything like that. Something could have happened in between these two. It takes a little bit of time for Trump to move his hand from The first image is his hand is kind of at his side, crooked at a 45 or so. And then the next image is him with his hand at his ear. And the image directly after that is his hand getting pulled away from his ear. And there's a little spot of blood already on his finger as he pulls his hand away from his ear. Presumably he's putting it there and then looking at it for exactly this reason, to figure out what's going on. This is sort of, I think this might even be the second bullet. I haven't tried to like parse out the sounds of the shots versus when he flinches, but this is one of the first 3 bullets, definitely. I mean, we know for sure that Thomas Matthew Church fired 3 bullets relatively quickly, and then after those ones hadn't hit, he fired 5 more very, very quickly, and at the end of that 5th was when he got shot himself. So that is a thing that we know from the video footage of the day and that sort of thing. But this was one of the 3 was this one here where Trump flinches, and half a second after this is when the Secret Service has him and they push him to the ground.
So I'll just say, all right.
Yeah?
So 8 shots in rapid succession, 2 casualties, and 1 near miss. Okay.
No, one casualty and 2 injured, and also another thing that was hit behind all of them.
Okay.
An object. It was there was several hydraulic lifts that were used to lift like banners and whatnot, and one of those, the hydraulic hose was hit in it. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just thinking about the the Texas massacre, where there's a mass shooting with a shooter from an elevated position from his hotel room, and he got like 60 people in 12 seconds or something like that.
You're talking about Vegas.
Yeah.
The Vegas shooting.
Yeah, at the outdoor concert. Yeah.
So this is a picture of this is a picture of the path of the bullet as calculated from the position of Thomas Matthew Church toward all the objects that we know that were struck. So very, very quickly, there's a yellow arrow that's showing this. It shows the stage where Trump was. It shows the red dot is where Corey Comparator was. That's the gentleman who died. I believe he died more or less instantly. I think he was struck in the head. This bleacher over here, these 2 dots over here were the 2 people who were injured. And then in the background over here, this hydraulic thing here was the object that was struck. One of the hydraulic hoses was struck. It fell. It compressed. It fell down on the ground. And the hydraulic oil shot out of there all over the ground. And in videos of this is shown and seen.
Sorry, where's the red dot where Corey Comparator was?
It's right here.
Oh, there.
It's
right,
underneath. Yeah. So all the known things to have been hit by bullets were all in a line, more or less lining up directly with the position of Thomas Matthew Church. If someone were to try to put him there and then, I don't know what some people might say, have a different shooter from a different position, hit all these things, they would have to be hitting all these same things that they know are in a line, are going to end up being in a line from him. That is much more difficult, right? It's not impossible, I guess, but that would take a lot more planning, I think. And of course, would have to assume that they were definitely going to hit those specific targets so that you could make it look like it was directly in line with him, when actually it would just be easier just to put a person in that position and have them shoot these 4 things or whatever. Shoot in this direction and maybe just these 4 things get hit or whatever gets hit. Which, also to note on this picture is the positions, where I got this from. They had marked on here the positions of where the 2 Secret Service snipers were. This one on what's actually the north, but it's in the lower. It's on the far left of our screen, but it's the north side. There's these 2 buildings. There was a north building and a south building. This one on the north was the one that was meant to be looking towards the direction of Thomas Matthew Church. What's not shown on this screen, but is shown from other images, is there's a tree that's obscuring the one spot that you would be able to see him. So difficult to say, we don't know what it was in the full set of things that Thomas Matthew Church did to calculate this. We know that he used devices to plan with. We know that he used a drone in the hours before to presumably to scout out buildings and rooftops and this sort of thing. We know that he used a rangefinder in 10 to 15, 20 minutes before the actual shots were fired. He was seen with a rangefinder. And this tree that's not shown in this picture, but is shown in other images, obscures this Secret Service group from viewing him and shooting him. It was actually the one on the other building, the south building. They had to wheel around and spot him and shoot him, which is why he got more shots off than people think he should have got off, because the snipers that should have been on him could not see him. And these guys had to move and re-aim and fire to stop him.
I know I say this with the benefit of 2020 hindsight, but
yeah,
if I was responsible for the security detail here, where I'd be putting a sniper to cover this event?
Where?
Right,
where the shooter
where
was?
The shooter was,
Well,
where he's got direct line of sight to the principal.
True. In hindsight, yeah, absolutely. This edge over here, I sadly don't have a picture of that, but yeah.
Well, it would have coincided if you look at the green dots where they already were stationed. If you put a green dot at the bottom of the screen where the shooter was, that's a perfect triangulation. So you've got all corners covered.
100%. As it is, where those green dots are, they're essentially redundant.
Yeah.
Which again, let's talk about complacency and let's talk about the presumption of competence.
Sure.
This does not look like someone competently setting out a security detail to cover all possible angles for this event.
It looks.
In mind, this was Trump the candidate, so
Yes.
there is a Secret Service detail. This was not Trump the president. And this is also Trump that has stiffed several cities. Every time he has an event, he doesn't pay them for security. He still owes fucking Milwaukee $500,000.
That's a thing that we mentioned the first episode I did about this last year, was that this is at an outdoor event, not an indoor event, because Trump, when he previously campaigned,
was going to stiff him. Yeah,
he could not get a lot of indoor events because most of them just wouldn't accept the booking. They knew that they would get stiffed, so they just wouldn't accept it.
We can afford Butler, a fucking hayfield. Exactly, a fucking hayfield in Iowa. We can do that because everyone's going to bring their fucking tractors anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
he's already been blacklisted by every goddamn arena in the country.
Right. Well, he's in debt in a lot of different cities because of the shit that they had to put up with.
That's all true. That's absolutely that's a big factor in this, is that, some people question why there was an outdoor thing at all. Right. Well, there is a reason why. It's not just random happenstance. There are things that are random happenstance, but not that one in particular.
If we're going to go down the road of conspiracy theories, look, there were enough real-time events that are well documented and publicly available that say, okay, well, this pushed us into this kind of scenario. Was it all by design by the globalists? No. Trump's a dickhead. He's stiffed other cities, so he has to have it in a fucking hayfield, and that's where somebody could get a shot off.
Yeah. So we talked earlier about his ear. So I got this picture here. I'll pull it up. Open. This is an image of Trump before July 13th. This was taken before July 13th. This is his ear. And this is actually a pretty good image. I can zoom in pretty good on his ear. That's really...
If you actually zoom in on his eye, I don't know if you can tell me if that's his eye or a pig's eye, because I've seen a side by side, and it's hard to tell. If you only see his eye and you only see a pig's eye, it's really hard to tell.
Pig's eyes are very similar to human eyes. Yeah. There,
especially if you're.
so are several other organs.
You've seen those
but-
pictures where somebody's put his lips in place of his eye? Yeah, not a huge difference. All right.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, look at
This is an image
tiny little
after.
mark. Yep.
Okay.
And I believe
Tiny
that should
little
still
mark.
be there because I don't think he's.
Too close. Too close.
This is another
So yeah,
image
if you're
of
gonna
it.
tell me that, if you're going to tell me that's the result of a bullet, then surely
I
you'll be
circled
able
it
to
and
show
zoomed
me.
in.
Yeah, I get it. Surely there's another similar wound, given how many soldiers we have abroad and how many people have fought in gunfights. That surely there is a similar bullet wound that looks like that.
Well, here's what it doesn't look like. It doesn't look like a slice from a razor. I mean, that's, to me, it doesn't look like that.
It also, to
I'm
me,
not,
doesn't look like a supersonic round just whizzed by.
If it
Well-
was a slice from a razor, hold on a second. If it was a slice
Sure.
from a razor, the angle that we're looking at it, it was a slice as opposed to a cut.
Well, yeah, it would have been at, I can't hold
Right.
it up
So-
with the
so
ear, but
if
it would have
if
been
you
across. Yeah.
Yeah,
That would have taken some
it's
planning
a
to do that
small-
slice like
a
that.
small chunk of skin taken off with a razor, or a superficial graze from a piece of flying glass.
I don't
maybe-
know with clarity, right?
But I mean,
Maybe Melania,
I've
maybe
seen-
Melania threw a fucking vase at his head.
but I've seen grazes. I've seen grazes from bullets. Right? They leave huge scars.
They
know,
can.
a
They
friend of
they
mine-
definitely can. I mean, the
A
like
friend of mine from
here's another thing to
university
think about.
escaped-
is that the skin isn't exactly the same everywhere in the body. There's 3 or 4 layers to the skin, and those layers have varying thicknesses depending on where they are on the body.
Yeah.
The skin on your ear is very thin. All layers of it are very thin. So
Sure.
what you'll see as a scar or what's left over on the ear will be different than what's on your leg, for example, right? I mean,
Sure.
that's also a factor in this, is that people compare this sometimes thinking it'll be a one-for-one comparison. They think, there was a graze I saw on someone's shoulder and it looks different than the thing I see on Trump's ear. But that's not a one-to-one comparison, because the skin on your shoulder is a different thickness of the various layers than the skin on your ear. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Because again, we're engaging in exactly the type of argumentation that
Yeah,
was just
right.
it was very, very bad. As if this should have happened. And you're right. None of us have seen a bullet wound to an ear before. We have no basis for comparison.
right. Yeah.
We can only compare it to other bullet wounds we've seen and the scars they leave behind on other parts of the body. For example, a friend of mine from university who had a bullet wound across the back of his hand from where he escaped the Ethiopian army that was shooting at him. Right? And it's a significant wound. It's a significant scar.
Yeah.
And I can't reconcile what I've seen from that type of bullet wound with this tiny, again, consistent with a razor slice. I've got to say,
Well,
the cartilage beneath does
this
not look damaged. It looks
thing here,
intact.
like whatever, I say this thing as though the people who are just listening to this can know what it is, but there's a sort of a line here, but this line here is not very prominent. This here,
Yeah.
across here, like this direction here, to me,
Oh.
this looks like a thing that's moving in one direction. It's,
Sure.
this way, and it left
Oh,
some kind of damage. I mean, that's what it looks like to me.
The only thing that looks consistent with healing flesh to me is the small part from where your cursor arrow is right now,
Yeah.
and to the left of that. Yep,
Yeah,
right there.
right
exactly
here,
that.
yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
only bit that looks consistent to me with wound healing.
That's
So Well,
That looks like
me
it to me.
ask you,
Yeah, sure.
so since we're spinning tales out of school here, Spencer, what do you think happened?
I think that a young man who was probably suffering some level of depression, mental illness, tried to do a thing to make his life worth something because he felt it wasn't ever going to be worth anything. And he did it by taking a shot at a famous person. And the nearest famous person to his shit-ass small town in Pennsylvania in the time when he had the thoughts to do it was big-time former presidential candidate Donald Trump. His search history showed almost nothing about this, but did show some things about it, which is interesting. It tells us that he used the internet to look up a few things for it, but it would be weird to think that he used some other method to look up other things about it, like, how do I do thing X or Y or Z that we think someone might have used the internet to look up, but not use it for those things like when is Donald Trump coming to town kind of thing, right? Was, I think, something like what he searched for, and that he found that he on July 3rd was when this event was announced. He learned about it on July 3rd, and it appears by the timeline of events of his life, that appears to be when he began planning this over 10 days. And that's what he did. If we're trying to imagine that it wasn't him doing this, that he's some kind of patsy or something, that he didn't actually fire these shots, I don't know what sort of scenario that looks like, because then we have to imagine that he did die on the rooftop, but that he didn't shoot anything. So he's volunteering to die based on something, but that's a very strange thing for a human to do. I mean, the story you have to concoct to make that work sort of doesn't fit with what we usually think of what a human does. If he just wants to just die, then he can just die. You know what I mean? Like, he can find other ways to commit suicide. There's all kinds of ways to do it. I think that it's troubling that we have now a phenomenon where people want to do this and they do it by committing some violence so that some law enforcement, does it for them kind of thing. This sort of suicide by cop. This is much more dramatic than that. When we've seen people do that, they do it in a way that's, we've seen people do that by spray of bullets into a crowd and then wait for the cops to show up and then keep shooting at them till they're forced to end their life kind of thing. That wasn't exactly this, but it fits a mold sort of like it. And I think that he, went there, he fired some shots. The shot where the path this bullet went would have ended Trump's life if not for him turning to the right just at that moment. Some people try to tell themselves that this is a sign that this was a thing that was planned, that Trump got a signal to turn his head at just this moment. But that story runs into the immediate problem that you have raging narcissist who values his life above those of his own, likely even his own children, who is willing to stand on a stage and, trust all the pieces to be in place to turn his head at just the right moment, which I think really, really strains credulity that he could knowingly put himself into the line of fire for this. He's not nearly courageous enough to do that. I don't think he would trust anyone in the world to fire those shots, even if they were just right at his ear, which also would be very damaging, right? Given the, a bullet fired right near your ear. But from any distance at all, I don't think he would trust anyone to do that. In this scenario where he's, someone knows that there's a guy that's going to climb on a roof, or maybe they even arrange for that guy to get on the roof because they callously don't care about Trump's life, or they know that this person they're getting to do this is somehow incompetent enough that they are certain it's not going to cause enough damage. That's interesting, except that we don't, you have to put a whole bunch of other things in place to make that work. And that gets into sort of the 9/11 conspiracy problem, which is how many people are involved in this thing in the first place. The larger number that have to be involved in a conspiracy always forces it to be a thing that's unbelievable at some point, because how many people are involved, right? Like, if you imagine that's the case, then either they had a method of communicating with him that none of the investigators could find, or the investigators had to somehow be in on it so that they could, delete all the incriminating stuff. You know what I mean? And those investigators were police in Pennsylvania. So already you have many different layers of this thing that have to fit together, which sort of, in my view, makes that fall apart. Occam's razor tells us that it's much more likely that it was just a kid who was troubled, who had access to a weapon that he probably shouldn't have had access to, who was clever enough to evade the law enforcement that was in charge of his side of the fence. I mean, all of that was happening sort of on the outside of a fence, right? I mean, we didn't go over as a set of details that we put in place, but law enforcement was meant to overlook that side. They had snipers, but I don't even think they were trained as snipers. They were just put in position to sort of look good. They were in windows. Those windows were not ideal for this sort of thing. It didn't have a wide angle view through those windows. You'd have to lean way out on those windows to kind of look over even at where he was. It's also not clear that he knew that even, versus him just kind of looking at this and going, well, okay, I'm going to come up here because they're over there, kind of thing. He did climb up there. We have all the video of him running across the rooftop in the minutes before, like 1 minute before the shooting. We see him running across that rooftop. He's seen with the rangefinder. It's noted in some of the details 15 to 20 minutes before he did it. So he was looking at that range at that moment. He was standing next to the building with the rangefinder. And so to imagine that it wasn't him is to imagine that he did all of those things to make it look like it was him and then volunteered to die, which is a very strange thing to say. To imagine that it was him, but it was like planned to be him, is also like, why would he need the rangefinder if he's being like shepherded and guided to do this? You know what I mean? Like, all of that stuff needs to be like acted by him, and then he still, volunteers to die for something that's not clear. And of course that includes the idea that investigators, shuffled off all the evidence of this and, memory hold it or zeroed it out or whatever. That's strange credulity to me. All of that. It just makes much more sense that this kid was troubled, was clever enough to evade the, Keystone cops that were, probably not taking it seriously until the few minutes before it actually happened. And then by then it was too late. Very, very likely there was breakdown of communication between them and the Secret Service. Probably that they weren't communicating effectively between their groups to let the Secret Service know that, hey, this kid's using a rangefinder. Hey, this kid is, there's a kid who's doing things, and, in the minute before, hey, he's climbing on a roof or whatever. There were police who knew to look on the roof. There were two officers. One boosted the other up to the rooftop to look at that exact spot. So they must have known something, but they apparently didn't communicate that effectively to the Secret Service, because there was a police officer who looked over the edge from the bottom up across that rooftop, and he notes in his report that Thomas Matthew Church pointed the AR-15 at him, at which point he just dropped. He just let go of the rooftop and broke his ankle, which must have also probably delayed, and caused confusion for how they tell everyone what's going on, because they're also dealing with this injured officer. In the he reports it as like 45 seconds before the shots went off, which again, it's difficult to say for sure exactly how accurate that is, as far as 45 seconds versus 30 seconds versus a minute. What point does he call 45 seconds? Was it 45 seconds when he climbed up, or did it 45 seconds after he dropped? Difficult to say, but we have a lot of video from a lot of different people about this. And the collection of all those videos together, there's no one story that makes sense, that both doesn't require a very large number of people involved in a conspiracy and or Trump's willingness to volunteer to get in front of a series of bullets. That's not, the one that makes much more sense, that fits everything that we know, is just a kid that was troubled and should have got help and just decided to do this the wrong way and nearly killed Trump. I think that it's possible for a smallish bullet to compress the air very near the ear, cause some damage, to cause some bleeding, and leave this mark that's clearly going in a, lateral direction across his ear. That's all possible. It's maybe strains credulity that it would happen in exactly this way, but that just means that it's unlikely that anyone planned for exactly this sequence of events. This is the kind of thing, again, that would happen by chance, but not on purpose.
Let me just you said a lot, and so I'm not trying
I
to
did, yeah.
minimize
Sorry,
what you just said. But no, go back to the ear if you would, because
sure.
I just wanted to touch on this, and then I'll have to wrap it up.
Yeah.
But the ear, something you said about that. There we go. Okay. So if you could bring your mouse to the darkest part,
right
to the left a little bit. Yeah, there.
Right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is the shadow of his ear with his hair. That's not part of his ear, so that's not a wound, right?
Yeah.
Move to the right. Yep. Yeah, we got that. Now move to the right further still.
Yeah.
To the next. Yep. Okay. Now move the cursor down to underneath where the red circle is, onto his ear, like the regular part of his ear, under the red highlighted area. Go
Under
further
the
down, to the right,
Yeah.
to the right. Yeah, to the right. A little bit further up, just under the circle. Yep. There are splotchy part, like his ear looks like that. Just forget about the red circle. Look at the rest of his ear. There are splotches. He has bad skin, and he's old, and he uses bronzer on his skin. So I don't see a bullet wound or a recovery from a bullet wound there. I see the same splotchy pattern that is represented throughout the rest of his skin. And that was just a tiny detail, a drop in the bucket of what you just said. But I'm just throwing that out there because
we can get more pictures of his ear because his ear is photographed daily, right? This is one I grabbed because it had a fairly good view of it, but there'll be more images of it today, right? Like I challenge everyone to go look at his ear now, zoom right in on that thing. What do other people see, right? I mean, yeah.
Right.
So I'm just going to
go ahead.
Sorry, Cormac. I'm just going to add to just a couple of things from what you said. One is it's impossible to know what the mind of a person who's going through a suicidal crisis.
Well, yeah.
So it's impossible to make any determination in terms of what a reasonable person would do, because a person in that frame of mind is definitionally not reasonable.
Yeah.
The second thing is, the more you were describing the situation, the more it becomes likely that it was deliberate or weaponized incompetence than actual incompetence. Because all of the things that you were listing just sort of reinforced this idea that what happened in terms of the performance of the Secret Service and the local cops and all was a series of events that couldn't happen under normal circumstances. The more you were talking about the way things were set up in terms of him being spotted before 20 minutes before the event with a rangefinder. I mean, shit, I'm not a cop, but if it's my detail to protect a guy who's going to be standing on a stage, and I see somebody 20 minutes ahead of time with a rangefinder and a drone, my response is going to be, hey, man, what the fuck are you doing? Put these here shiny bracelets on and come with me.
It's
So
also a factor. Sorry.
The more you are listening, the more it sounds like an event that was allowed to happen than an event that occurred through the just direct incompetence of the police.
Well, I mean, I can't definitively disprove that, obviously, but I will say that even the idea that it was allowed to happen requires a fairly large number of people to have known about it in advance and to be part of the plan. And that's always problematic as far as conspiratorial thinking goes, right? That's never...
That is one thing we can agree 100% on.
Yeah.
As a person. I'm sure we've all done group projects before. I'm sure we're all well aware how much you can trust the other person to do their part. So I agree with you on that one. To have a conspiracy is highly unlikely. That whole thing about 3 people can keep a secret as long as 2 of them are dead.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm in the same position as Korak. We're getting about the 2-hour mark and so I too have other responsibilities to attend. So
sure.
Final thoughts, anyone?
Well, Spencer, thanks for having us on. It's been fun to kind of bat this back and forth and just kind of chew on it, because there's plenty of unanswered questions and a lot of weirdness that I think will never get answered, but, can be dissected by a bunch of nerds like us. So, I appreciate the time, man.
There is a lot of weirdness, right? And I have wanted to have conversation like this with some people who were, unsure of some things and were unconvinced or were felt strongly that there had to be something, right? So I thank you for coming on and being open enough to talk about this, right? Like, some people don't want to talk about it. They think I'm just going to chew them out, or I don't know what they think I'm going to do. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't want to have, I'm not here to, chew anyone out. People believe what they believe. They think what they think. I think that we should, until there's a definitive reason to think it was a conspiracy, I personally think that we shouldn't put any thoughts, any more oxygen into this myself. That's my position. But I mean, I'm not trying to say that the people who are thinking this are, what would be the word? Defective in any way. You know what I mean?
Mm. Again, I'm going to disagree with you there, because I am plenty defective. And if we have another conversation,
this isn't evidence of the defect. This isn't evidence of the defect, is what I'm really saying. Everyone's defective in some way.
Yeah. Look, I just want to echo what Korak said. I had a great time. Really enjoyed the discussion. And
sure.
If you want to do this at any point in the future, you know where to find us.
All right. Great. So I'm going to let this play out as we're done here, if you don't mind. This is the video that I show people when they are more, as the common parlance is, pilled than you two are about just what level of fake this is. This is a series of videos from various people, and some of them from networks that viewed this live. Some people think that all the images from this could have been faked, but of course, some of these were shown live as it happened, so it's hard to fake them live. You know what I mean? But one account on YouTube took all these and they synchronized them up so that views from multiple angles are shown as they line up to the timeline of events. And to me, anyway, the only explanation that explains all the things in this one video is that it was just a guy that got on a roof and took some shots. but people are welcome to form their own opinion, of course. But yeah, I'll just let this play, and then we can kind of sign off as we go. Sound good?
Sure thing.
Sure. Okay, here we go. It isn't going to handle all that at once. Of course it isn't. This is why we can't have nice things.
This is the worst MCU post-credit scene ever.
I was just going to say, it's great podcasting for the listeners. Yeah.
They're going to watch.
Well, you know.
That's okay.
I warned them that we look better on YouTube.
We've overloaded Spencer's system. That's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, where can people find you both? In case they want to find you and congratulate you on the good job you did just supporting, or they want to tell you all about how wrong you got it or whatever. Or just find your podcast.
Korak and I are both fairly active on Twitter. You can find us relatively easy. I'm Scorpion_Bird. We have the Ready to Rumble with Bird and Bard podcast, which is on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and on Podbean. Our recording schedule is erratic, roughly the same as Spencer's at this stage. I think we're about a month between episodes for our weekly podcast. So yeah, we've just completed a 4-part on the way that Rumble viewed the deaths of Charlie Kirk, Hulk Hogan, and Ozzy Osbourne. And we'll get back to the regularly scheduled examination of right-wing shitbags on our next episode.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm literally on minute 24 out of minute 84 of the current episode, so it is being edited. It is almost in the can. Meanwhile, I've got my own channel on Atheism 101. That's youtube.com/@antitheistsuperstition. I also have a Patreon, patreon.com/KorakTheBard, where you get early and exclusive access to everything that we're doing. And on the Atheism 101 YouTube channel, I debate theists, and my latest was with Doug TenNapel, the creator of Earthworm Jim, who turns out to be a super Christy MAGA dude. So that was a fun conversation, and many more like it on my YouTube channel.
That's great. And I personally think that what you guys are doing with the Ready to Rumble it actually is important work. It exposes people to a thing without letting them find it for themselves. It lets them see what's out there without them having to potentially get radicalized. It is essentially, in a lot of ways, very closely related to what they do on Knowledge Fight. So I support what you do.
So glad. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's a big inspiration for me, and Doc and I both listen to them, and it requires a couple of dedicated nerds to be like, do you realize what's going on this side and the crazy that's coming from there? And of course, I don't have time to listen to Alex Jones 8 hours a day. Neither do these guys, but they turn it into a podcast and distill it into, this is the crazy that's coming out of the right. So that's been an inspiration to both of us, and that's why we do Ready to Rumble.
Yeah.
And Spencer, I'm really glad to hear you say that about, informing people without exposing them to it, without, having that radicalization channel open, because that was genuinely part of the plan, part of the overall mission statement, if you will. So I'm really I'm very happy to hear you say that.
You're succeeding, so I support you and that success. Keep going.
Fantastic. Thank you.
But if you have other conspiracies and you put them on your podcast, I might just saying this might happen again.
Open invitation to you to call us out anytime.
Well, all right. That'll happen.
Next time we're going to talk about the gold standard, brother.
All right. Thanks very much, Spencer.
Great. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Till next time.